So today we are going to learn about arrays, also known as lists. So in order to create an array, we are going to use square brackets. And it is like a collection of things. So in this case, we have a collection of names or animals in your household, and they are each separated by a comma. So in order to access items from an array, we would use another set of square brackets at the end of the array. Inside those square brackets where the X's, we would be putting a number. Now the number would be the location number of each item in our array. And in this case, in encoding, we start counting with the number 0. So 0, 1, 2, since we have 3 items in our array. If we wanted to access dog, we'd be putting 0 inside the brackets. So like anything in coding, you can store it to a variable. So in this case, we are going to call our variable pets and house, and we are going to assign our array to this variable. In order to access an item inside a variable, we will use the same type of process, calling the number of the item that we want. So we're going to call the variable, and next to it we're going to put, with our square brackets, we are going to put a number, and that number will be kind of like the call number. It will access the item inside of pets and house. And in this case, we are trying to access dog because we are calling the number 0. Okay guys, so this is a continuation of the arrays. So now we're going to look at it in a playground. So what I want you to do right now is open up a blank playground on your iPad and then just kind of follow along. So just pause the screen here and kind of copy everything down. And all you're going to do is just kind of follow along with me and then turn it in for credit. Okay. So what we have here is we have a number array at the top, which has numbers or integers in this array. Then we have a string array, which has an array of wrapper names connected to this variable. The first thing we're going to learn is a dot count. So dot count counts the number of items in each array. So up in this we have 6 items, and down here we have 5 items. And then in order to create a blank array with nothing inside, we're going to create a variable called friends, and it's going to equal a string, but you have to put the brackets or the straight brackets around it with a set of parentheses. And notice when you run your code, you have a blank array here right now. So first thing we're going to do and first thing we're going to learn about is called adding items. And there's 2 ways of doing it. The first one is dot append. So if we look at the dot append, we will see that after we've appended 3 items, it'll show the 3 items that are inside there. Okay, now we have the dot insert method. Now the dot insert method is going to place the item at a specific location. So at this point in the code on line 19, drummer Steve is being added at number 3, which means he is the last one. So remember how we count these. This is item number 0, item number 1, item number 2, because remember in Swift we count, but we start at 0. And then notice that now it's coming in at number 3. Same thing with the second one. Dave is being inserted at number 0, so he will be the top item in the list, and then it will still keep everything else kind of going. Okay, and that is just to show that everything is showing up. All right, so those are the 2 insert methods. Now we're going to look at removing things out of lists. Think about this like a playlist. You know, you add items and then you remove items. You do it through a click or a drag. But deep inside the code, it's doing it with actual code. So if we notice and we first look at this, we're removing the first item at number 0. So that means Dave is going to be leaving the group, and now it only has the 4 items. Now the next method that we're going to learn is the dot remove first. So it is going to remove the first name no matter what. In the list. So notice that Steve has now been removed, and it now just has the 3 remaining names in here. We can remove the dot remove last, which will remove the last name in here. So that is removing drummer Steve. So now we only have E-Dog and Pizzle as our last 2 items inside of an array. And the final method is remove all, and that removes everything from the array. Okay, so that takes care of removing every single item out of the array, no matter how many you had. You could have had 80, you could have had a 5,000, 1,500, or 2. Okay, doesn't matter, but it's going to be removing items. So make sure that you understand how each of these work. You don't have to necessarily memorize them, but at least know what they are. You will be quizzed on this, okay? So make sure that you understand append, insert, remove, and all the rest of the different variations of remove, okay? And then the final thing that we're going to kind of go over is replacing items. So to replace an item, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set item to a constant. So how we're going to do this is we create a let constant. We're going to call it first wrapper, and we're going to assign it the first wrapper in our list or in our array. And in this case, it's Migos. If we look back up at the top, we have wrapper names equals, and it's just going to pull out the number 0. So remember, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's pulling the first item. So now we can set a constant with that item inside. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to replace the name. So if we call the array wrapper names and we call specific location, we can have it equal a new name. Now notice when I rerun wrapper names and we look at the array, Migos is no longer there and it's been replaced by 50 Cent. Okay, so that is kind of how you replace a name inside. You just kind of have to code it out. And then notice if we assign the new name to new first wrapper at this point, since we've changed it here, notice now it is holding 50 Cent and not Migos. Okay, and then just to kind of just go over and reiterate what we are talking about here, this is the final one. Just make sure to run your code when you're doing this, but this will show up and have Dr. Dre show up in place of I can't remember who I had there, in place of YG. Okay, so that was at number 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and then this is item number 4. Okay, so hopefully you kind of get a good idea of how arrays work. It's really kind of just storing a bunch of items in there. So instead of having, you know, a constant or a variable store one item, you can hold multiple items, which helps you in your coding. Okay, so we're gonna expand on this. I'm kind of doing this before we do the playground, so then hopefully when you hit the playground, this kind of all makes sense to you. So like I said, make sure that you have all this. Take a screenshot of it and submit it to make sure that you have it. Please run your code to make sure that there's no errors. Please understand how this works, and when you're done, you can go ahead. The quiz will be assigned for the next day.